One of the worst things Trump ever did was he convinced beta males that they were alphas. There was no way these guys were cucking anybody.
You piss everybody off when you make jokes. You say that conservatives don't get the joke and hate you, and the liberals get the joke and hate you. Why does it break down that way?
Why isn't the joke funny anymore?
People will take any form of mocking, will view it as a personal attack, and then react in kind.
What coalition are you forming with being 2% Neanderthal?
I know, right? Oh, the dude that said they'll kick my ass on Twitter. There's no guarantee whatsoever that you will ever get paid to do this. So when you're going down that road, you also have to factor in, like, more than money, I'm going to be spending time.
Hey, welcome to The Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. It is TCU's Day. We are here live on Discord, just like every Tuesday. I am Kevin Lieber, and with me, as always, is Matthew Tabor.
Yeah, we got a couple guests coming up that one of whom nobody knows about until you're going to tell them right now. And it's somebody who I've wanted to have on the show for, just about 3 years since I started following him on Twitter. He makes the most amazing things that I can't even describe how cool they are. The little miniatures. I told Kevin it's the kind of thing where he'll casually be like, oh, I made this thing for my kid. And it's something that like looks like a master craftsman spent 20 years on it. And he probably pounded it out on like Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, that artist is Bobby Duke. So we have Bobby Duke coming up in 3 weeks. So he'll round out September. Next week we have Chris Raygun. The following week, between Chris Raygun and Bobby Duke, will be a Matthew Tabor solo episode. So he could talk all about, I don't know, buying 80 pounds of meat or some sort of new card collection. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. That'll be up to him because I won't be around.
That's right. When Kevin's away, it's either going to be the best episode ever or the worst. It's a coin flip. It might be both. It might be both wrapped in one, but I'm excited for it.
It'll be good. It'll be good. I'll look forward to listening to it afterwards. But we have a great guest tonight, someone that we've known for a long time. But before that, I'm sure we'd love to hear about your main gear updates.
That's right. I'm excited because the workbenches, both workbenches are coming this week, and that unlocks everything. Get the baseboard trim in. I got some art today for the room as well. A premium photo from a publication called Baseball Magazine. In 1940, they put one out of Jim Rawhide Tabor, my favorite Red Sox player in history. And so I got that, and I'm matting and framing that for decor. But I hope that solo episode on the 20th is from that studio. It won't be done, but I hope I'm in there. Like you said, Kevin, we've known Lou Perez probably 7 years now, maybe a bit longer. He's a comedian who got to start with the Wicked Hammercats at NYU, and then performing in the comedy duo Greg and Lou before producing and starring in Everything Good on the Webby Award-winning YouTube channel We the Internet. He even earned We the Internet's place on a list of far-right extremist radical content channels, and no one has ever figured out why. His writing has appeared in The Spectator, Spike, The Wall Street Journal. He's produced the TV show Impractical Jokers, but one of his jokes gives you a better understanding of the mind of Lou Perez than any of those bylines. He says, I love my wife and son, but I have thought of abandoning them because single mothers are heroes, and what kind of man would I be to stand in the way of my wife becoming a hero? In his book, That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, which launches today, this podcast is a launch event. It launches today. Lou laments early on that no one sends me funny shit anymore, just links to the latest cringe from establishment shows like SNL, Stephen Colbert, and whatever the hell Peacock is. We've heard this before on this podcast. The 38 wide-ranging vignettes that follow explain why, as he navigates racial identity, whether a poo should be canceled, and how hate speech laws are actually really destructive to the populations they're meant to protect. Lou is in the top 5 funniest people I've ever met, and upon hearing this, both conservatives and liberals who interact with him on Twitter would probably insist that I must have only ever met 6 people. If Everybody Hates Chris ran for 88 episodes, Everybody Hates Lou would make One Piece's run look paltry. Lou's comedy is often labeled political, but it really isn't. In the book, he makes the case that speaking truth to power isn't a function of the comedian, let alone the function. He says comedians are supposed to find the funny and go with it. Sometimes that is political, but usually it's a little dangerous. He writes that safety will be the death of comedy, and it's easy to understand how somebody who grew up in Queens adoring the comedy of Martin Lawrence, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, Norm Macdonald, and shows like In Living Color might think that. Lou really just talks about life, and despite Kevin and I growing up in an area with a consolidated school district that served several towns at once, well, Lou went to one of those numbered factories for New York City's wayward children, PS 151 specifically. He's one of the very few people who I feel is a New Yorker just like I am. When he tells stories about hardworking parents, it could be about ours. His teen and college years, they sounded a lot like ours too, except Lou was a ripped hunk whose sexy body and cut jawline even graced the promo flyers for a gay nightclub. So, Lou, we're going to talk about the book and the trajectory of comedy. We also agree with what you put in the book when you said it's never been easier to prove that you're talented if you are. But first, you've recently fled New York City for greener pastures. You've escaped like Latinx Snake Plissken. What's your most horrific New York City story?
Oh my God. That was such an amazing introduction to me. I feel like I'm just gonna, it's all downhill from here. Dude, thank you so much for that, man. One of the most horrific stories. I've seen people getting beat up. I've seen people defecate on the street. But I think probably the most horrific story that I experienced, it was during the pandemic, and it was at a time, I forget how many weeks we were in, to restaurants being basically shuttered and not being allowed to have any diners inside. So they were only able to do pickup or deliveries. And my wife had just had my son a few like weeks earlier, and we were walking around our neighborhood, and we were going down Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, and one of our favorite pizzerias was Table 87. Is it Table 187? Table 87. My apologies.
187 would be an edgy pizzeria.
Pizza murder.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Dre owns Pizza 187.
It might,
doesn't it?
Yeah. Suge Knight, the Suge Knight cannolis are just fantastic. Yeah, I guess it's been that long that I've actually forgotten it. But it was a great pizza spot, and we were walking by it, basically doing a trek that we had done just every day. And this time we go and we look, and what's outside but 2 tiny tables with chairs. And we were like, wait a minute, this is incredible. Like, can we sit here? And I went in, and I had my mask on, and possibly like my gloves, like rubber gloves. I said, "Can we get pizza and can we eat outside?" And the owner said, "Of course, that's what they're there for." And for the first time in however long, my wife and I sat outside on a New York street and enjoyed delicious warm pizza and our child looking on. And it felt like, man, things are really looking up. Everything's going to be great. Cut to a few days later, we're taking that same stroll. We can't wait to share that moment again, to recreate that. And then we're walking by, and we notice the tables and the chairs are all gone. And it's like, hey, what's going on here? I go inside and I ask the owner, what's going on? And she says, somebody called 311 on us, and we were told that if we have the tables out, they're going to fine us something like $3,000 or $5,000. So in a moment of this pandemic where just so hope is just, at a low in the city, here we had, something as simple as a pizzeria that was, gave us so much energy and life for the, brief moments that we were there and able to share outside of it. And a neighbor basically called the cops on this pizzeria and said, no, you can't have tables outside. What you're doing is wrong. We're going to shut you down. That, I think, is one of the most horrific things that I experienced in New York.
Yeah. I was expecting the poop stories, not like a soul crushing, incredibly depressing pandemic story. You know, I thought it was going to be, I saw this guy take a dump on the subway and someone else breakdancing and he slipped in the dump and got all over, you know, like some story like that. Instead, it's just dire and hopeless, grim.
I mean,
scenario of people at their lowest.
I mean,
in a different way,
right? I mean, if you could, it's wild. If you could choose, I would be like, you know what? I would just schlep through just streets full of shit to get to that pizza. To get to that pizza, man.
That should be a Yelp review that you leave. I can't imagine a stronger testimony that pizza is good. That's like, I would walk through human shit up to my hips just to sniff this slice.
Exactly.
Well, there were all those videos whenever, you know, New York floods terribly of people trying to still go into the subway for some reason, even though there's 2 feet of water.
It's the programming. It's
not clean water. It's kind of brown, sudsy, greasy water. Who knows what's in that? But how long did it take until they were allowed to have outdoor seating again? You know, what was the time span between that moment of having Karen call the cops on them and and the city allowing people to eat pizza in peace on the sidewalk again?
Yeah, you know, I forget what the timeline was, but I think it was upwards of months. And there was all this weird math going on. Like you could only have like 25% seating indoors, and
the capacity limits.
Yeah, so you had a number of restaurants that had a lot of, you know, they had a lot of room indoors that they weren't allowed to use, and then you had other restaurants that had like no seating indoors originally, but then were able to do outdoor seating. You know, so suddenly like they have a lower overhead, and now they have all of this this real estate outside that they could use. So yeah, some people you know, lucked out, I guess, on it, but most didn't.
It's the greatest city in the world, isn't it? That's why. You know, there's so Guns N' Roses didn't play for so many years, and then they came back and played at, you know, the Video Music Awards or something like that. And Jimmy Fallon is hosting it, and it's such he absolutely ruined Guns N' Roses coming back because he jumped around on stage and he's all hyper because he's Jimmy Fallon in the early days, and he has this thing about, you know, like New York's the greatest city in the world. I don't know who honestly believes that anymore. Do you think somebody could say that with a straight face and be taken seriously?
You know, it's something like where, you know, we're supposed to say it. You know, like, hey, I grew up here. I'm supposed to say it, but you know, something happened where sort of like the old, you know, kind of tough New Yorker who, you know, will walk through a shit-filled street to go get pizza, you know, like they'll do it, right? Like they would do it, but they'd complain the whole way and say, you know what, someone's got to pick up this shit. This is ridiculous. I'm willing to walk through it, but you got to clean this up. But now you have the New Yorker who is going to walk through it and then come up with any excuse imaginable to justify the shit being on the street. And it's something that I found, even though I moved out of the city, I've kept a NextDoor account for the same the same neighborhood. It's sort of like you know, checking in on an old girlfriend, but
stalking an ex.
But the good thing is the ex is in a terrible relationship with like an awful guy. So it's like, yes, I won this one. And that's all NextDoor is. Like you have people complaining about there's one example. Somebody was complaining about at a subway stop, all of these people lined up shooting heroin in the open. And they, you know, there was somebody like, you know, I think she was in like her 60s, and she's like, you know, I'm really concerned because when schools open up again and, the kids have to take that subway stop and they have to see, this going on. And the amount of people in the comments saying, they're not hurting anybody, mind your own business. And it's man, what's going on here? How degraded, are these people that their first impulse is to, go after the woman complaining about it rather than say, hey, you know what? Maybe there's a better way to do this. Maybe this doesn't actually help, make New York the greatest city in the world.
There's an app like that I'm on. It's not NextDoor, but I can't remember what it's called because I don't use the app. I just get email notifications, and it's always somebody. I say always, so there's a new message like once every 2 weeks, maybe, and every single time it's something like, "Hi, I'm Angela. I just moved here," and I don't even read the rest of it. I mean, I just think, "What are you doing here?" Like it's an invasion. It's unwelcome. I don't want them there. I don't want to know their name. I don't want to see their picture. I just delete the email.
That's like the one, in a way, like you actually have control of whatever border it is. It's like, even if that person is physically there in your mind, no, you've sent them away. They haven't come into your land.
That's right.
So in the 70s, there was like a great stretch of filmmaking that kind of documented the seedy underbelly of places like New York City. A lot of these films were not I think wasn't Dirty Harry in San Francisco. I think Dirty Harry was San Francisco.
Yeah,
no. But the point is there was this like stretch of iconic films that were all about kind of cleaning up cities. Like they had gotten too dangerous and too foul and too depraved, and some vigilante would come along like Charles Bronson in Death Wish and take it upon himself to clean up the streets. It doesn't seem like these people want to clean up the streets. Like it's almost like the opposite, where Charles Bronson instead is going to fight people who are trying to fight the Charles Bronson of 1976 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like what happens here? What is the 2022 version of a movie like Death Wish? I don't even know.
I think the 2022 version of that is Charles Bronson is on his laptop, and every time like somebody is pushed in front of a train or a woman is beaten for her purse, he says, we got to look at the underlying causes of this. We got to look at the system, man. And we got to change the system. And all he does is just comment and just spread that. And then, he'll change his thumbnail every now and then to like whatever new cause it is. Like that's
and
the
just
version.
shovel Grubhub food in his mouth and type away on his keyboard in his underwear about how the people who are assaulted actually are not the victims.
Exactly.
No. The DoorDash receipts, like the expenses of an Uber Eats and DoorDash, really pile up when you have to order the food for your wife's boyfriend as well. Once you start ordering for three, you're looking at $80, $90 an order. It's insane.
Well, yeah, and that whole relationship, like the wife's boyfriend also eats your food, so that's a big part of it.
Right.
But you are the Alpha Cuck, aren't you?
I am the Alpha Cuck, sir. That is correct. Should I just leave it there and then just let people guess what that means?
Let them figure it out. Was that the chapter where the footnote was said, like, my wife asked me not to, asked me to delete this?
Yeah. She's like,
wait.
This
explain that for people listening.
So I have a chapter called Alpha Cuck, and in it I explain how one of the worst things that Trump ever did was he convinced beta males that they were alphas, especially online. So they're the guys where if you look at their thumbnails, it'll have like an eagle fornicating with the American flag, and they'll come at you. So one of the things that I miss a lot about those years was, being called a cuck. And oftentimes I would, venture down the rabbit hole and check out these guys' profiles, and nobody would ever be cucked by these dudes. Like they had like there was no way these guys were cucking anybody. And I've had the desire to like call them out on it and say like, all right, homeboy, come into my love dojo and let's see what you can do. But just so you know, I'm going to be there the whole time. Making eye contact, breathing heavy on the back of your neck. And it's like, you got to get one thing straight. I might be a cuck. I'm the motherfucking Alpha Cuck. So my wife's like,
there is something.
That one.
No, but hey, it's in there, isn't it? So you overruled her.
That's right.
I see this a lot on Twitter with people really having no self-awareness when it comes to judging other people's looks. I don't know if you have run across this as well, but like so often I will see someone who is not a 10 out of 10, like ripping on people being ugly, and then their profile picture is right there, and you just click on it and you're like, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Like, I could see what you look like. Why would you say anything about what somebody else looks like? I don't understand that at all. You know, maybe I have, like, I'm too self-conscious myself, and maybe these people just are uninhibited and they're just letting it rip. But that seems to be a pretty more prolific than I would have guessed, is people sort of making fun of other people's looks while at the same time perhaps not considering that they're not the hottest people in the world. I'm trying to be like political about this. No, I'm trying to be nice about how ugly these people are, making fun of other people being ugly. And I'm like, what are we doing here?
No, I experience that all the time, because you'll have, you know, when you attack somebody's looks, it's like, okay, you know, the reality is that a lot of my fans look exactly like the people who hate me, you know? So it's like, if I go after someone's looks, then I'm also making fun of fans of mine. It's like, hey man, you got a stupid beard. It's like, yeah, so many of my fans have stupid beards, but I need them, and I would never insult them. But what I find really funny is like when you have people who go and make fun of your looks, and then you come back at them, and then they call you a bully for doing it. It's happened so many times where, especially like women on Twitter will like make fun of my forehead and my hairline going back, and I'll respond in kind and say like, well, you look like a Grand Rapids 4. And it's like, how dare you freaking...
Wait, what is a Grand Rapids 4? What does that mean? What does that mean?
A Grand Rapids 4 is like I think, you know, a Detroit 5, you know, might be like a Grand Rapids 5. I don't know. I'm from New York, man. I'm not too sure about the geography here. But this one time I said something like that in response to a woman who had made fun of my looks, and she immediately called me a misogynist. And it's like, but wait a minute, you started with me. You started making fun of my, making fun of my 5 head. And, you know, this is where we are. I wonder if a lot of it has to do with just the nature of being online, where, you know, you could scroll through, you know, go on Instagram and check out all like Instagram models and who are, you know, just gorgeous women who are just out of like anybody's league, and just be like, her feet like are kind of small. Ew, no, she's a, what is it? Like she's a 10, but like her feet are kind of weird. Next. I don't know.
Oh, we have some theories about what Grand Rapids 4s look like in the episode chat. Thank you, Charles Kahn. Thank you. I don't know what you've been sipping, but you've got it all wrong. It's time to commit to the leaf. We've embraced the smoothness and surprising pick-me-up that tea provides. I literally drink it all day long, nearly a gallon a day, and it powers me through research, script writing, and forums on websites that I refuse to name here. But we don't drink normie NPC tea. We drink cultured and refined anime tea from the Dragon's Treasure. Kevin still likes the gunpowder green called Space Cowboy, and I've sampled nearly 40 Dragon's Treasure teas at this point. Lately I've been slamming black teas like Kentucky Bourbon and liquefied Berserk Despair. Scottish Breakfast is deep and peaty, and I smooth it over with Sebastian's Morning Earl Grey, which has the best vanilla cream taste I think I've ever had in a cup. Give me a pot of that with a hot meatball sub from Sal's Pizza and Brooks Barbecue Chicken to wash down my last meal on death row. I highly recommend the sampler packs. You'll want to try everything just like I did. I literally have not had one tea that I wouldn't be happy to reorder. The Dragon's Wings membership fuels new tea experimentation, and the Tea of the Month Club provides a regularly scheduled surprise. And when you order from the Dragon's Treasure using code CREATE, you'll get 10% off your order. That's 10% off using the code CREATE at thedragonstreasure.com. The link's in the description. There's a phenomenon that you describe in the book about Twitter where, like the thing that I said in the intro about you, you piss everybody off when you make jokes. But the difference is you say that the conservatives don't get the joke and hate you, and the liberals get the joke and hate you. And from seeing the replies to some of the spats that you get in, it's absolutely accurate. Why does that exist? Why does it break down that way?
I don't know. I wonder if I think, everybody has defense mechanisms, and it seems like, larger populations that are connected, politically or religiously, or, something going on there, like tribal, have their defense mechanisms. So it's like with liberals, it's like you're not funny and you're a bad person for doing, for saying that, so therefore you should be ashamed, and they'll often do the, shame meme. And then with the conservatives, it's like, you're not funny and just, I can kick your ass. And so it's like their form of intimidation is, physical violence, physical intimidation. And I'm not, I don't know, maybe you guys have a, more insight into like maybe where that's coming from, but it like you said, it really seems to, in my experience, like break down along those lines.
Well, it's weird because what you just described is generally considered the breakdown between masculine and feminine aggression. So that is pretty interesting. Where like unruly men essentially are violent, and these are the men in society who end up in jail a lot of the time. Whereas sort of unruly women typically will engage in like character assassination over beating the crap out of you. So it's like Mean Girls. Think of Mean Girls, okay? The whole point of the movie Mean Girls, if you're familiar with that, or Heathers from our time because we're old. Even Mean Girls at this point is kind of dated. I don't know what a more contemporary film illustrating this point is, but there's this trope amongst really kind of like like in a meta way, it's condensed to teenage girls. So like high school girls, there's the Mean Girls, and they band together and they pick a scapegoat. They pick someone to bully on, to bully. But it's not beating the crap out of them. It's calling them ugly and embarrassing them in front of the boys or whatever it is to knock them down a peg, to shame them. And then, conversely, obviously you have like hazing amongst males. Like I'm speaking in very general terms here, but there's a reason there's like hazing amongst like frat boys and athletes where they will do like physically humiliating things and sometimes violent things to sort of put someone through the ringer. So I don't know if that made any sense at all.
No, it totally does. And I think I do, I guess, to myself, I do more of the feminine bashing, like to myself. Like I'm like, you look like shit. Nobody's gonna like this. Like I do that to myself. So maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm more adept at dealing with it when other people do it to me, because I'm like, well, I've already shit myself enough. I have schlepped through this shit sidewalk of myself, and come out the other side of it. But
Yeah, I don't know, but I think generally people understand those archetypes where you would see somebody like that you would generically consider on the conservative side of things be like, I'm going to beat you up, boy, sort of, right? That's like the stereotype there. And then on the other side, it is more like, like you're canceled, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are ostracized from the community. You're out of the club, which is more of like the Mean Girls style, rather than socking someone in the face.
There's so much stuff that's like the instant response, like, you wouldn't say that to my face in line at Menards. And you're sitting there thinking, like, I wouldn't be shopping at Menards on Tuesday. This scenario, it just would not exist at all.
Yeah. You wouldn't tweet this to my face, dude.
Oh, there was the greatest version of that ever. Now, I don't know if anybody's familiar with this because you'd have to be kind of into UFC. But it was like maybe a couple of years ago now. There was this hilarious thing where Paul Felder, who's a former UFC fighter who now does commentary.
Yeah, he's great.
He got ripped by somebody on Twitter. Some dude, called him, a wuss or whatever, said he sucked. Paul Felder responds by saying, "You wouldn't say that to my face." And the guy responds, "No, I wouldn't. That's why I'm saying it on Twitter." Like it was like completely honest about it. He's like, "No, I would definitely, you would beat the crap out of me. That's why I'm just saying it over Twitter. Cause I'm safe here."
Yeah.
It was perfect. It was like, touche. How could you even respond to that? You just tip your hat, I guess, at that point. Be like, all right, at least you're honest.
Right.
At least you're honest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I do wonder how many of these interactions, would happen in real life. But I think something happened, especially I noticed during the pandemic, where it did seem like there were a lot of online interactions happening in real life. And I had experiences where, walking around in a park, basically by myself, being yelled at for not having a mask on, like basically being called a murderer for not having my mask on outside in the park. And it's like, wait a minute, is this Twitter come to life? Or, this person who thinks it's, their job to police me in that way.
The funny thing is, if you were just like, a 35 to 45-year-old male who was creepily staring at 9-year-old girls at the park, but you had a mask on, everything would be fine. Nobody would say a word about that. You're like, oh, this is just one of those park oglers. That's normal. This is what the city is about. But you take the mask off and all of a sudden things are very bad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait. Charles Kahn found the Paul Felder reply. It's in the episode chat. So the guy wrote back, he said, "Nope, you'd kick my ass. That's why I said it on Twitter." So there you go. Yeah, it is. But do you think so Lou, do you think that that's seeping into reality? Is this, well, I was safe on Twitter, maybe I'm safe in real life now?
Yeah.
I think that's seeping into actual social interactions.
Yeah, I think so, and I think you see it too with people recording on their cell phones. Especially if kind of getting into a combative situation and immediately pulling out the cell phone. I would often see examples of people who were being threatened, and their first move is to pull out a cell phone. And it's like, no, your first move should be to get the hell out of there. Here's somebody who's threatening you and coming at you. That cell phone might help, in a court case if it goes that far. But your first instinct should be defense and getting out of there. Or if you can't get out of there, how are you going to use your hands, to defend yourself against this person? So it's like this. It's this weird, this weird device that offers a sense of protection, and I don't know if it offers a sort of like this semblance of a barrier between you and the action that's taking place. So
that seems to happen on like public transportation. On Twitter, you'll see crazy things happening on the subway and somebody's filming it. Usually multiple people have their phones out and filming it. I think that they really think that they're helping, that they're intervening in a way when this really bad thing is happening by recording it. It's like, no, if you want to help here, take the peel the crackhead off the elderly woman. Right.
Oh, God.
Don't zoom in and like pat yourself on the back that you've got like a 40x lens on your Samsung.
Yeah.
No, you actually have to like help out.
Stop lighting the scene. Stop putting up, get your gaffer and whatever and just, peel the guy off. Actually, one of the, a sketch that I produced for We the Internet a little while back, it was called iPhone Heroes. And it was about people being recognized for their bravery of not stepping in to help and be good Samaritans, but just standing outside of the situation and just filming for social media clout and putting it out there. And that was an example of a sketch that I thought would do really well, because there were so many of these videos coming out, especially in New York City, of just that, of people just filming while their fellow citizens are being walloped by insane people. But yeah, didn't do as well as I thought it would do.
Your mention of the person defending themselves with a cell phone reminded me of a story from years back in which is a tragic story. This woman was interacting with some guy on the street, and one thing led to another, and she says to him, "What are you going to do? Stab me?" And he did.
Oof.
And she died. He stabbed her to death. And so her last words were, "What are you going to do? Stab me?" And then she was stabbed to death. It's like, it illustrates like the most horrific version of what you're talking about right now, which is, why do people feel invincible? It's a scary thing, because you're not. Like you said, your first instinct should be to defend yourself, to run away, to get help. I don't know, just not get stabbed, perhaps.
Yeah. I wonder if
respond to the situation somehow.
Yeah, I wonder if a lot of it has to do with a lot of people don't experience violence firsthand. That I'm not going to blame it on Hollywood, but just like the idea of like a lot of the people where you see violence is often in a fictional scenario where the person ends up walking away from it. And yeah, I think anybody who has at least a modicum of experience with violence just knows how bad it can get, and lives can be lost, and definitely not to challenge somebody like that if it
This goes back to that point with Psychic Pebbles about how not experiencing bad things is not great for you. And when you're not exposed to bad things or difficult things, I do think there's a sense that you are invincible to them. They're not that real. You don't have the direct experience with a bad thing. And it just is fantasy, like almost like the way you think of a video game. It can be really realistic, but it's not real. And at no point do you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
We want to help you make something and mean something. And we say that phrase all the time because when you're making something and it means something, even if it's just to you, that's when you feel pretty good about what you're creating. The support for the Create Unknown in recent weeks has been incredible. Animators, artists, musicians, YouTubers, aspiring filmmakers, comedians, it is crazy how talented everybody in this community is. Consider joining the Create Unknown Patreon. Every dollar that comes through goes straight into the podcast and its community. That means more highlights videos. It means a big Minecraft project that's on the way. And eventually we'd like to manufacture custom piss bottles so you never have to leave your battle station. And being a patron unlocks participation in all of our live recordings. You've seen the roster of guests we've had. Having access to their minds is a unique opportunity. You can go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown or click the link that's in the description. Every little bit helps, and your support means absolutely everything to us. Patreon.com/thecreateunknown, links in the description. We appreciate you, Space Cowboys.
Yeah, well, let's talk about jokes that aren't funny anymore. That's the as pay homage to the Smiths with your book title as well as the book cover. Why isn't the joke funny anymore? Tell us about like the title and kind of like what inspired you to write it.
Yeah, so that joke isn't funny anymore. It's off of the Smiths' "Meat Is Murder" album, and something that I found out about publishing is I wanted to use the lyrics, quote the lyrics in the book, and I was told you can't do that. And I'm like, oh my God, but they're just so perfect. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the song, it goes, that joke isn't funny anymore. It's too close to home and too near the bone, too close to home and too near the bone. And it goes on. And I feel like that really just sort of encapsulates the times that we're living in, where I feel like so much has been personalized and politicized that, people will take any form of mocking, whether it's about their politics or any of their belief systems, will take it so personally and view it as a personal attack, and then react in kind to it. So that sort of is where I was coming from with that.
Mm-hmm. Or their favorite Marvel movie. How dare you make fun of Thor: Love and Thunder? But I joke about that, but that is true. It extends that deeply to people feeling personally attacked over something as like frivolous in the grand scheme of things as movies or TV shows that they like.
Yeah, and I feel like there were obviously too with the idea of that joke isn't funny anymore. There was a time when whatever joke we're talking about was funny, but now it's like off limits, and you're not allowed to talk about that. So I found that interesting, sort of the new sacred cows that have popped up, new third rails as far as what subjects you're allowed to make fun of, and also who is allowed to make fun of those subjects.
Mm-hmm. That's something that you touch on in a lot of the chapters. The part about who has access to say something and why, and how convoluted and difficult that can get. The one story about you encountering a waiter whose last name was also Perez, and it was kind of awkward. The really funny part there was you saying that like he was so skeptical of you that you thought he might take your coffee cup and send it to 23andMe to verify that you're one of the tribe. But what's that wasn't there 30 years ago, was it? Not in the same way at all.
No, I was thinking of, growing up and going to PS 151, as you mentioned earlier, and it was school right across from the Woodside Projects and right across from the Boulevard Gardens where I grew up. So in the Boulevard Gardens were mostly like Irish and Italian kids, or like and New York kids, of Irish and Italian descent. And then in the projects you had Puerto Rican kids, Black kids, and I don't even know if like at that time there were a lot of like Central Americans or even Mexicans, coming up, and Chinese kids as well. So it was like a big mix of people. So I was always used to being around different people, or people with different backgrounds. A lot of the kids, children of immigrants, and that's not to say that race wasn't a thing or ethnicity wasn't a thing, but there just seemed to be a lot more openness with, it not being the prime the prime feature of who you are, and I feel like that's something that's definitely changed.
So do you get pushback from people depending upon a joke that you'll make because of what they think you look like or what your background is, and maybe you don't have the right to make such a joke?
I'm trying to think of the pushback that I've gotten. Something that I noticed, like sometimes I've been surprised by there was a time when I was making jokes. It was kind of in the early days of like 2016, and getting into it with like legit alt-right, like white supremacists, and like them telling me to like go back to Puerto Rico, wherever the hell I was from. And I'm like, man, nobody ever thought I was Puerto Rican growing up. Like, this is kind of interesting. Like, what world is this guy living in where he thinks I'm Puerto Rican, you know? So I've had, you know, like stuff like that, but that's not necessarily like, you know, pushing back from the people who, might be offended by it or say that you don't have the right to, you know, to tell those jokes. I sort of, I don't know, lean into it and enjoy, you know, that aspect of it, because the thing is too, like even like the whole Latin thing, you know, being Latino, it's sometimes treated as like this monolith, you know, but it's like, my dad's from Argentina. That's very different than somebody from, you know, El Salvador, you know, or Honduras. But yet in the United States, it's sort of like an attempt to clump all these different peoples together. You know, I don't know, to form like a voting bloc or you know, or something like that, or a coalition. So I don't know. It's probably a roundabout way of saying like, I get away with it.
What coalition are you forming with being 2% Neanderthal?
I know, right? The dudes that you know, that say they'll kick my ass on Twitter.
Yeah, you could throw out that you share that same percentage of Neanderthal DNA, and they're like, "Whoa, I didn't realize you were family. Sorry, bro."
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that was a trip. I don't know. Have you guys done the 23andMe? You guys done that?
I have, yeah.
And what did
Have you,
what
Kevin?
you guys find out?
We did Ancestry, and I found out I am extremely Irish. Extreme. It basically, they just mailed me a 4-leaf clover. Those were my results. I was like, oh, all right. I was like, I get it. Okay. I got a potato and some booze in the mail. And those are my results.
they gave you a pint of Guinness and a job down at the docks.
Congratulations, you have alcoholism. That's what they said. That's what they said about me. What about you guys?
Mine was very narrow. Very narrow. 100% European Caucasian, 71% from the British Isles. The remaining 29% was kind of dipped into Western Europe, and that was it. It's actually shocking to me how close to inbred those statistics read. When I look at that and I think of how populations have to mix to that many generations down the line, coming out with something so constrained, it's tough. You have to be extremely selective. But my theory on this is that only like in my generation have people looked for a husband or wife beyond about a 10-mile radius of their town.
Well, that's what I was going to say is like, when would you move? Like back in the day when you had the farm set up,
yeah,
you know, when are you moving? And if you are moving, how far are you moving? Not far.
Yeah, no. And both sides have to be like that for it to come out so consistently. So I'm happy that I've got the right number of fingers and toes, that the chromosomes check out. Everything is okay there. But it was surprisingly narrow. And I was really disappointed too, because I hoped that there would be some kind of connection with the Israelites, with Mount Tabor being such an important part of both the Old and New Testaments. And there is nothing in the actual bloodline that takes me that far south. It's nuts.
Wow.
Very hard to do. My people worked hard. They worked hard to love, even if the girl at the farm next door was a total uggo. They were fully committed to keeping this bloodline.
But that's how marriage worked. It was like, hey, this family has chickens, we have cows. Okay, we'll get married so that we get some of your chickens and that you get some of our cows. That's literally what marriage was.
I grow corn, you grow beans. We're real close to good succotash here, aren't we?
We are. We just have to marry our sons and daughters, and we can make succotash for the rest of our lives. It's a sweet deal. I mean, in modern times, we have like such a warped conception of like finding the love of your life. And first of all, there are still plenty of places around the world where arranged marriage is the norm, in which you're not going on any dates, okay? There's no such thing as dates. Your first date is your wedding night. That's your first date.
Yeah.
But going back historically, I read a whole book about, I don't remember what it's called right now, but I read a book about marriage, the history of marriage. I think it was for the Dunbar's video, Dunbar's number video. Okay. One of the books that I read for that video was just about marriage.
There's a limited number of cousins you can sleep with or remember sleeping with. I forget what Dunbar.
No, that's Perez's number. That's not Dunbar's number. That's Perez's number. No, that's Dr. Oz's number. That was like the thing that was trending on Twitter today. Dr. Oz was talking about like how far removed of a cousin it needs to be.
Oh,
for
really?
You. Yeah.
I don't know anything about this. I didn't look today.
That's his campaign for his campaign.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how this came up. Like, who's asking him about like cousin like husbandry? I don't know, but it came up, and he said anything outside of first cousins is fair game, basically. That
sounds like a pep talk that like a 90s teen movie. Where it's sort of like, it's called like, family reunion, bros out. It's like, look, boys.
Yeah.
If you're wondering what the rules are.
Anything after first cousins is fair game. I don't even know how we got there. Oh, yeah, marriage. So anyway, nobody was moving. And, you married whoever had good opposite agriculture as your family, and that was pretty much it. That's how it worked.
Recently, I shared a clip on Instagram of I was at Freedom Fest, and I was talking on a panel about satire, and I brought up that I found out that I was like 4.8% indigenous, and I made a joke like, that means you're all on stolen land. I own 4.8% of that, and it went over well with the crowd, and I posted it on Instagram, and like the same day, a guy got very upset with me for joking around about that. And he was somebody, I guess, who had, quite a bit of indigenous DNA. And he pointed out, he's like, yeah, that 4.8%, that's because your ancestors were raped. Like he was so sure that
I mean, it's possible.
It's quite
It's always possible.
It's possible, but I told him like, no, man, I did the research, and all my ancestors were like really good looking dudes. So like all the native chicks were really into them. I'm like, don't worry about it. There was no rape. And he, of course, got very offended by that.
Yeah, I feel like that wouldn't help. You wouldn't be swayed by that one.
It's like, yeah, that's definitely not going to, that revisionist history of the colonial, capture of the Americas. But yeah, he got very upset about it. So.
I mean, I was going to reference one of your favorite movies, Matt, Dances with Wolves. Didn't you ever see Dances with Wolves? Come on, Kevin Costner and that Native woman fell madly in love.
Well, she was white.
Oh, right.
Stands with the Fist was white and taken as a baby, but it's a really important part in that movie. That's also I feel like it undergirds a bunch of the chapters in your book, Lou, where it's like, what is somebody's identity there, and is that woman who has lived her entire life one way, which, by the way, the first great American novel, Last of the Mohicans, is that exact same scenario where a child has grown up who happens to be white, but in every possible way, he has lived as a Mohican. So, what does that make you? And it's this constant theme that people are obsessed about that runs into that line that you had about safety killing comedy. If you can't talk about anything confidently or proudly or critically, just anything positive or negative related to this stuff, how can you be funny about it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And there's like I made this joke saying that when I found out that I was part Indigenous, I started to really understand the progressive argument against naming sports teams after Native Americans. Like, it is offensive to name sports teams after Native Americans because sports teams should be named after winners. And the Native Americans have a lot of L's and not too many W's. And I said that I could say that because I'm 4.8% Indigenous. You can say it because it's true. And, just giving people the license to, speak the truth, bro. It's fair game, man. Anything outside of your first cousin. So.
You had a section about contrasting Hannah Gadsby's shows with Dave Chappelle's, and you've got these two completely different approaches to comedy, and a whole lot of people seem to enjoy both. Do you think there's a Venn diagram that crossed over where there's a subset of people who when I say enjoyed both, I mean separately. So two different groups, group A, right? But is there a subset of people who liked both of those specials? Like you pop them on and and that wasn't so much a comedy thrill ride, but you watch that and you really love it and it's important and it's entertaining. And then the next thing you watch is Chappelle's latest, and you love that. Is it possible to do that?
I'm sure there's somebody out there, who can do that. I mean, one thing that I tried to do is, I tried to be honest about Hannah Gadsby, in that, a lot of the judgments that I made about her early on all came about based on like the clips that were being shared of her, of like, oh, here's a section of her show where, there are absolutely no jokes whatsoever. And she's, describing this horrific, her horrific rape, it's terrible. And, just watching that and not having the full context of the show, it's like, yeah, what is going on here? But, I took the time to watch both specials, Nanette and then Douglas. And, as I admit in the book, and, to the chagrin of the red-pilled out there, there are jokes that she has that I think are really funny and I enjoyed. But like the caveat is that they were jokes, they were well-crafted jokes that were there to make people laugh. I think what she did to her audience with Nanette was weird. And which she admits in Douglas, is that she sort of tricked all these people to come see a comedy show and then hit them with this, really heavy stuff. And, I think there's room to be entertained or to be moved by what Hannah Gadsby does, and at the same time, enjoy what Dave Chappelle does. So I think it is possible. What I don't like is this idea that, Hannah Gadsby somehow has either redefined comedy or subverted it so that Dave Chappelle can no longer be a comedian or be performing, or his style of comedy must be attacked from all angles and eventually silenced, which is something that I feel like a lot of the people who may look to Hannah Gadsby as an icon of what comedy is now or entertainment are looking to do to somebody like Chappelle.
One thing that I think is worth talking about or considering when it comes to things like this is that everybody has an opinion now, and for better or worse. And in a lot of ways, in all ways, it's super unnatural. If we're going to kind of go back a second to when I was talking about how marriage used to work. Well, look at how comedy used to work. you would go specifically to see a comedian that you liked, or at least if you like stand-up comedy, you would go to a stand-up comedy club to see comedy, and you would be in that room and you would either laugh or you wouldn't, and that would be the end of it. Whereas now you could be a person who doesn't even like comedy. I don't know if we've talked about this too much on this podcast. Maybe we have, but not in a while. But some people just don't like comedy. They just flat out don't. Like, there's a percentage of people who like comedy. Like, we think of comedy as like, well, everybody likes to laugh. Okay, those are not synonymous. Like, just because you like to laugh doesn't mean you like comedy. Like, comedy is a specific craft that's designed to make you laugh. But it's not the same thing as laughing at something. So just because you can find things funny does not mean that even more specifically you like stand-up comedy. Like, stand-up comedy is a very specific craft where someone is alone on stage with the microphone surrounded by a bunch of people just talking to everyone at the same time. It's very weird. It's a super weird thing. And some people love
nobody
it.
talking back.
With nobody talking
That's
back.
a big deal.
You don't even know the guy or girl. Like, it's a stranger. Like, it's just a stranger on stage talking to a whole crowd of typically like drunk people, and trying to make these drunk strangers laugh. Like, it's freaking weird. So the thing that's weird now about it is that you'll have people who can and will give their opinion on a Hannah Gatsby show or a Dave Chappelle stand-up when they don't even like what they do to begin. They don't even like the medium that they engage in to begin with. It is the strangest thing that ostensibly everybody has to hear from people's opinions on a thing that I'm not going to say they shouldn't have an opinion on, but they kind of shouldn't have an opinion on. Like, you know what my opinion of, I don't know, professional like bass fishing is? Nothing. My opinion of professional bass fishing is nothing. I don't have one. It'd be super weird for me to like go on a Twitter rant about what some professional bass fisher did during a bass fishing tournament.
Well, I have to say, as somebody who covers that extensively, I'm very, very troubled by the transphobia in bass fishing. It's just out there, and it's not funny. And I will call it out as I see it.
Well, I mean, I guess that's, you know, I'll give the devil their due in this instance and say that they're commenting on something that they do feel passionate about, right? Which is sort of a cultural topic that the comedian is making a joke about. But the problem with that is that I'm not saying everybody doesn't understand this, but a portion of that audience doesn't understand jokes anyway. Like, they don't understand. Like, when you hear people complain about a comedian saying it's just a joke, and they say, you know, nothing is just a joke. Yeah, it is. That's what jokes are. Jokes are jokes. Jokes are jokes. The point of a joke is to make a joke. And the point of I'm not going to use the word to define the word. The point of a joke is to make somebody laugh who was voluntarily in the vicinity of the joke teller. Like, that's how that works, right? Like, you volunteer out of your own free will to subject yourself to a joke teller who then tells you jokes, and you can find them funny or not. But for somebody who isn't engaged in that game, and you can consider it a game, to say that what they said is not just a joke, I think is ridiculous. It's a weird and unfair judgment to make on something that I'm dubious of whether or not they understand the game that's being played to begin with.
Yeah. I think what you say is really important. And I often wonder when I, read like, these think pieces or, just following whatever's, trending. It's like, what are these people trying to get out of it? Because, like you described, people go to a comedy club, they're going to spend like a good amount of money. They have to spend, to get in the door, and then there's usually, a drink minimum or a food minimum. They're taking time out of their day, to be entertained. I think for the most part, most people who go want to laugh, like you described. But then you read like these think pieces, and it's like, what are you trying, to get out of this? And I think a lot of them kind of read like B- papers in college, where it's sort of like, oh man, I got a paper due tomorrow and I haven't done any work on it. Okay, why don't I, analyze this piece of content through a Marxist feminist lens, and then let me write up my 1,200 words, hand it in. Okay, I got a B-, on my paper. For me, and something that I sort of was able to like rediscover when I was writing the book, and when I was writing it, like there were like stories that kind of popped up that I hadn't thought about in a while, and I'm like, this makes sense with what I'm writing. And it really came down to like, some of the most, memorable times that I've had have been around, laughter's been involved, whether it's, going to see, something like going to see a live show or performing in a live show or just hanging out with my friends and laughing, and just how important that is. And in the book, as I sort of track, life for me, changing over the years from being, a single comedian doing improv and sketch comedy, to meeting my wife, to having kids, to going through, pandemic and, a lot of, down times, over, the past few years, and losing a friend. And it's like throughout it all, the comedy's been there. That's been like a real, just an incredible tool that I've had or been blessed with, to even in like the worst of times, to be able to find a little light in there and some laughter. So for me, it's like, I think it's important, definitely when it comes to politics and culture, for comedy to consistently, challenge the status quo and not be afraid of taking on taboo subjects. But I think also just in like the social element of it, of connection, and connecting with people. I think it's just it's crucial, and yeah. So.
Well, real quick. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt. Just real quick. I wanted to button what I was saying earlier, and that's that the comedy shows are not political rallies, and it seems to me like that's what's being conflated. It's like the comedian is up there to tell jokes. It's not a lecture, and it's not a political rally. The jokes are supposed to just be funny, and that's the game. So, like, a political rally is a totally different game. So conflating those two, I think, is the problem. Sorry, I just wanted to say that real quick.
No, and it's more broadly in entertainment as well. And I think of in maybe 2015 or 2016, I went to an event in Las Vegas that had Bill Nye. Bill Nye drew. This was at what's it called? EDC. Electric Daisy Carnival, I think it stands for. Massive music festival, arts festival that runs for about 3 days in August in Vegas. And one of the draws that day was Bill Nye doing his thing. And the line was insane. Tons of people came out to try to see Bill Nye. And it was a political rally. It was really awkward and disappointing. It was horrible. I wanted to see Bill Nye being goofy and funny and charming like he is. And instead it was about, stopping this and that with climate change and fossil fuels and whatever. And the only way to do that was to support Hillary Clinton and whatever. I'm like, oh man, I hold my ass all the way out to Vegas. I'm having a good time because it's Vegas. But that was really disappointing because he turned it into a political rally. And I left that at the end of it. I did stick around for the whole thing, so I was already there. And I went to a comedy show. And this guy was talking about shitting in the shower and stomping it down the drain. And it was amazing.
New York City, 1976, so the good old days. He was going to get a pizza right after.
Awesome. It snapped me back. And I thought this contrast between this horrible political reality when I expected some entertainment. Well, I got entertainment, and it's not classy stuff, but I love it. I'm relaxed. I'm having a good time. And that dichotomy was absolutely amazing there. But I don't want to spoil the book here, but toward the end, you make a point that if you're going to make other people laugh, truly laugh, it runs the risk of things hurting. That there's a vulnerability in all of it, probably on both sides, both the audience and the comedian side, that allows for real, true humor. Is that what you feel like we're losing? That we're pulling out or making things so protected and safe, and getting rid of all vulnerabilities and offenses and things like that, that we can't find things that funny anymore?
Yeah, to a certain extent, and I think a lot of it is also kind of wrapped up in a fear of failing too. And now failing isn't just like, you go out there, you try a joke and it bombs, and it's like, okay, that sucks, but maybe I could, rewrite this, or, maybe this bit could be developed, later on. Now it's like, you got up there and you said something, and now, people don't want you to ever be heard again, and I think, that's something where, in a world like that, risking telling jokes is definitely things are definitely going to be chilled on that level, as far as people really putting themselves out there, and trying and trying new stuff. So I think we definitely need to be a lot more it would be good if the environment was a lot more forgiving about this stuff, and not looking for the next public sacrifice, yeah. And in the book, I talk about, the one good thing about cancel culture is the murder career suicides, where where somebody, will whip up a mob to cancel somebody else, and then that same mob finds something that this person did, and in turn cancels them. And it's happened. Like, I've seen it quite a few times with, kind of like low level comedians who seem to be, nipping at the heels of someone, more established, and then it's just turning against them. But I think like in everything, risking something is really meaningful, and you can, I think, if you were to list everything that's really just wowed you in life, especially in the arts, there's something happened there that this person took a chance, and thank goodness they did, because what would the world be like if everyone just was like, nah, it's just not worth the risk, it's not worth speaking up. And I think that also will spread out into other things. If a comedian isn't willing to, make jokes about, whatever the hot button topics are, transgenderism, or, religion, or, specifically Islam, maybe, if they're not willing to, make jokes about that, and then you have, people who aren't willing to, criticize, any of those things, or at least, have, probing conversations about, such topics, then, man, what are things going to look like down the road?
I want to ask about one more thing from the book, and it's a combo of two things. One, I mentioned in the intro, you saying that it's never been easier to prove that you're talented if you are, and then you talk about developing comedy skills, and you're telling people they just have to grind. And it's the same stuff that Kevin and I have said on this podcast for, I don't know, 160 episodes, where it's like, go do your thing, and it's going to take a very long time, and maybe something happens. And you say that after 6 months of grinding on comedy, you might have 5 tight minutes of material that you're really proud of. How do you encourage somebody who looks at that and thinks like, why am I going to spend 6 months of however much hard work to get this short little set that I can do at an open mic?
Right. Well, one thing I definitely want to plug the fact that Mr. Tabor is quoted in that same chapter. He offered me incredible wisdom that you guys as listeners are definitely privy to, and it was I'm very happy that he gave me permission to include some of his very sage advice in that chapter. On the subject of man, why am I going to work 6 months for 5 minutes? What I would say, especially in the comedy realm, is to just point to every single comedian that person looks up to and says, well, because that's what they did. Every single one of these comics started, from this same place. I would take, legendary clips from the stand-ups who were on Johnny Carson and said, that's more of like a tight 5.5, 6, but look how amazing that 6 minutes is. Even, in some stand-up routines, years and years later still hold up. Like Rodney Dangerfield has stuff from 40 years.
I was going to mention Rodney Dangerfield when you brought up Carson, because Rodney Dangerfield's jokes, yes, are still killer.
They kill.
Killer.
Yeah, amazing.
Look up Rodney Dangerfield clips on YouTube, please. I beg of you, if you haven't watched them. Watch every single Rodney Dangerfield on Carson clip, and unless you're one of those people who hate comedy, you will love it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, you could do that. You might get close to doing that. You might get close to producing something like that. It's worth the risk, and it's worth, the attempt. And also, you'll know too, I think after a first few times, like, are you willing to do this? Are you willing to, to get out there? As I talk about in the book, one of the things about comedy is like, there's no guarantee whatsoever that you will ever get paid to do this. There's no guarantee that you will ever even, you might even book a gig and there might not be a guarantee that even covers your travels, to get there. And, so when you're, going down that road, you also have to factor in like, more than money, I'm going to be spending time, a lot of time, trying to hone this craft. But, I gotta say, man, when you perform, those first 5 minutes that you've spent so long putting together in front of a real audience and they're laughing, you're like, oh, wow, man, this is magic. This is incredible.
I've heard a lot of comedians talk about the bombing is worth it for those moments that you get when you're not. What's the opposite of bombing? Is there a term?
Killing.
Killing. Yeah. Okay. It's weird. Both of those things seem murderous.
Yes, they do.
You're either bombing or you're killing.
Well,
I don't know.
Isn't there a gentle success in comedy? No.
Right. Hugging. Why can't
I
we
hugged hard last night, bro.
Yeah, I hugged down at the Comedy Store. Lou, we're gonna get you out on this question we've been ending on for a few podcasts now, but I wanted to throw a little twist at you and see if you would be willing to answer the question as somebody else. I know that you can do impersonations. I know that you, for instance, can do a spot on Richard Pryor. I don't know if there's another impersonation that you have like in your back pocket that you'd like to kind of dust off for this moment, but that's up to you. But the question is actually, it's a simple question that's kind of complex, and that is what makes an interesting person? How do you become an interesting person? What do you do to become an interesting person? And you can tell us ahead of time who you're answering as, or not, or just go into it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking I have a 2-year-old and a 10-month-old asleep not too far from me in this room. And
hey, it's time to grow up.
That's right.
Time to learn what daddy does.
Oh my God. What makes an interesting person? Damn, motherfucker, I've been worrying about this shit for a long time, Jack. I'm like, am I high or am I interesting? God Goddamn. Goddamn. The cocaine don't make you interesting. Your nose don't make you interesting. The shit you say make you interesting, Jack. If you want to be interested, you gotta be.
And
You gotta be a motherfucker that says shit. People are like, I don't know where he came up with that shit, but it makes sense. I think something along those lines. I think.
I wanted to say that in the episode chat, Charles Kahn pointed out that the face, the people listening to this on audio are missing the face. This face is spot on too.
What is the, how can they see you do it on YouTube? I know that you do it on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I did it in a video for We the Internet. I think it's like something like brave comedian makes fun of straight white men, and and at the end of it, I pull out a Richard Pryor impression. He's really tough to do because I can only do it if I'm saying motherfucker or motherfucker or and shit and Jack and goddamn.
Yeah, the Jack works. The Jack works. All right, so check that video out. Check out some Rodney Dangerfield clips, and of course, most importantly, check out Lou's new book. That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. We will definitely have links to that, but you can get it on Amazon. You can get it at any fine book retailers. Just look up Lou Perez. That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, and highly recommended from both Matt and I. Big fans of you, Lou.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on, and congratulations on the book, man. You wrote a book. That's a lot of work,
Guys.
It's a lot of words.
Thank you so much, man. Really, it is wild, like the amount of like the years that we've known each other. And I've been such a fan of what you guys do, and so much wisdom, on your podcast, and I'm so happy that people are getting it, and to many more years. So
yeah, sounds good. All right, guys, we'll be back next week with Chris Raygun, followed by Solo Tabor, and then Bobby Duke to round out September. If you want to support the podcast, please go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown and join us. All right, we're out of here. Until next time, see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week, and the recent support has been amazing. Sid Poke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. Thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Farrakhan, Jen Mefasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Peddler, Risebread, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Vidioger. And a tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders: Atrocious Guff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight, Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, Chelxies, and of course, Trevstead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer-editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yoshua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it. And a special thanks to Main Gear for powering all of our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.